You know, a little fun fact about me is that I've never played a Castlevania game before, except for the 3DS demo, but I don't really count that. I know it's one of those series that you just have to play because of how critically acclaimed the NES titles were. Well, with a lot of digging, I was able to find what some people consider to be the superior of the two Castlevania N64 games. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. I know what some of you guys are thinking, no, don't make that your first Castlevania game! It's too late. I've already played it. And can you see the title of the video? I can't change that. Well, when a game starts off like that, you know that it's gotta at least have somewhere to go, so, you know, I'm actually genuinely interested to see what's gonna happen. After one auto start, you get to start your game, and it gives you the options to play easy or normal, and then options to play as 4 different characters. Except, not really. You have to play as Cornell first. I'll be talking about Cornell's story for the most part of this review. The other characters that you can play as are Henry, Reinhardt, and Carrie. From what I understand, Reinhardt and Carrie are the playable characters from the first Castlevania 64. If you decide to play as either one of them, then you're pretty much playing a remake of Castlevania 64. Because of this, I won't be covering them right now. That'll have to wait for another day. Okay, so the game starts off with a lot of context, and I mean a lot. They throw so much at you that you almost feel like you're watching a movie at the beginning. But before we even get into the story, I just want to say that this game looks great. It's definitely laggy at some parts, but as far as visually, I'm a little bit taken back. Yeah, the character models for the humans don't look fantastic, and young Henry sort of just looks like a small human rather than a younger one. But the enemies, cutscenes, and levels look great. I'm actually thoroughly impressed because I wasn't expecting much. I was expecting a bad game all around because nobody seems to have anything good to say. But things are detailed. I'm not saying it's perfect because there's often a lack of things to look at, but what is in the game looks fantastic. It all looks great. It also sounds fantastic, but maybe uninspired. There's a lot of music from this game that reminds me of Ocarina of Time, which the music from that game is mwah. That means delicious. Music can't be delicious. Legacy of Darkness also took a page from Ocarina of Time's book and has a lot of cutscenes. The cutscenes look great, but are kind of awkwardly long, and after a while I would kind of feel uncomfortable watching them. I need an adult. So back to the story. It's set in the year 1844 and opens with Cornell arriving back in his home village, which is a fire village. Oh yeah, that is so awesome. Wait, no. I have just been informed that it is in fact just being burnt down. That's less awesome. It's currently being attacked and burnt down by Dracula's minions who have kidnapped Ada, Cornell's adoptive sister. Cornell defeats the minions, finds Ada's pendant, and then sets out on his way to rescue her. Throughout the game, we meet Ortega, who apparently has a rivalry with Cornell for some reason. It's all very anime-ish.
I'm jealous of you because of that one time when you beat me at that thing that I care about.
It doesn't have to be this way. You could be the good guy.
No, you beat me at that one thing. Now I want my revenge.
Later on, you go to a manor and have to escort a young boy named Henry out of a maze and to a forest, and that's it. I mean, what? Cornell then comes across a lot of different challenges where the story never actually progresses. Eventually, he has his anime battle with Ortega, who then anime kills himself for reasons unknown. After one more tower challenge, Cornell finds Ada, but before he can rescue her, she is Zelda'd away. Wait, did that actually just happen? Cornell makes the final push and eventually comes face to face with Dracula, who, after being beaten, reveals that Ada was just bait and Dracula actually wanted the man-beast form, which Cornell had to sacrifice to save his sister. The end. I think. The story really boils down to a brother wanting to save his sister. This works for me, and honestly I prefer wanting to save a family member over wanting to save a significant other. It feels less like a cliche, and I can usually genuinely get behind the lead character. Also, the story isn't like Dracula is stealing Ada just for the sake of stealing her, but rather to get to Cornell. It's interesting, but by this point I've seen dude saves dudines so many times that I hardly have anything else to say about it. Okay, so that wasn't bad. The story isn't awful, but honestly the story only makes up a fraction of the game. What about the next part of the game? What about the controls? Oh god. The controls are a bit rough. The button layout makes sense, which is nice. You use A to jump and B to attack. Nice. I like that. Left C uses an alternate attack. Down C makes you use your picked up weapon. Right C is used to open up doors and interact with things. And up C is used to look around and change your camera view. R is used to position your camera behind you, but sometimes your camera doesn't understand this and will freak out. L transforms you into a werewolf. I mean, whatever. That's lame. Except it's not. Holy. This happened by total accident the first time, and this was pretty much my reaction. And Z makes you crouch. If you're running and you press Z, then you'll do a slide, which is pretty much how I tried to move around the whole time. The controls are mapped out pretty well, and it's nice to play a game that makes use of every single button on the N64 controller. But the controls themselves... Ew. Jumping annoys the hell out of me because you have to commit. Once you make a jump, you better hope that you were right. You have very little control over where you're going to land, but you can sort of control if you're going to jump a little bit or far. But once you're in the air, good luck. You can't really back out of it if you think you're going to land badly, you know, sort of like Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie. There was so many jumps where I overshot it but tried to pull back and nothing. That is awful. And you don't auto-grab ledges either, so it's easy to just mess up and fall. To grab the ledge, you have to hold on to A, which isn't something that feels natural. At least, it doesn't feel natural to me. There was never really a point in this game where I was able to grab ledges without really thinking about it. I had to remind myself all the time to make sure to grab the ledge. This game really is all about the platforming, and when something as essential as grabbing a ledge in a platform game is something that you struggle to do, then there are issues with your game. Now, in some games like Shadow of the Colossus, this works because that game isn't about platforming, it's about holding on for dear life. This isn't, or it shouldn't be. It's about jumping and throwing whatever this is. It's so easy to forget that you have to manually grab ledges because it's something that is so intuitive that you'd think it'd be automatic. And before anyone brings up, you can't grab ledges in Banjo-Kazooie and you love that game so much, it's a platformer. That's a game without the feature to grab ledges at all, and it was designed around that. This game, you have to grab ledges constantly. That's pretty much the entire game. And another thing, moving around is not exactly the best either. It's so floaty, and when you try to stop moving, you'll slide just a tad bit, and this is a hassle. Floaty controls don't generally work in platformers. They just don't. And what is this stupid slide thing? Why? I like attacking in this game. I don't know what it is you're flinging, but it's fun. It's an interesting attack at the very least, and you can sort of combo it with a slide, which always made me feel really cool. Although the one fault that I have with this attack is that it's hard to aim. Trying to hit candles is hard because you really have to size it up, and it's a candle. It shouldn't be hard to hit, it's right there. To sort of cure this problem, they added in a small targeting system in battle, which overall works and is effective, but it doesn't come without flaw. It does it automatically, so you have no say in who you are going to be hitting. It pretty much auto-targets whomever is closest. This is okay when you're standing far away from targets and you want to keep them at a distance, but in close ranged combat when there are multiple enemies around, this is annoying. A targeting system. This auto-targeting system also works for your throwing items too. I kind of forgot about the items a lot, which was a mistake because some of the items really come in handy. The throwing knives aren't really good. I tried to avoid getting them at all costs. The cross works just like a boomerang and can hit many targets, but it is extremely weak. The axe is awesome, and if you upgrade it, then it shoots out lightning. I want you to go ahead and think about that for a bit. Alright, and the holy water seems to set everything on fire and is so overpowered that at times, I would rely on it too much. The items use up your jewel count, which is fine because jewels are easy to find. This game would be a girl's best friend, you know, because of jewelry. Don't hate me. I hardly ever use my close range attack because there's no use for it. I mean, why would you use your close range attack when your long range attack is not only safer, but also stronger? You wouldn't. What are you, stupid? No, you're not stupid. I'm sorry. The werewolf transformation is so easy to just forget about. There were only a select few times that I actually used it. I never really saw an upside to it. This is mainly because battles don't last longer than a minute and it uses all your jewel power. It just drains all of it. The more jewel power that you have, the longer you'll be in the werewolf form, but other than combat, the werewolf form really serves no purpose. You don't platform better. I would much rather use my jewels for item usage, which can give you quick kills, than using it for a form that is only useful in spurts. I mentioned that you have control over the camera if you hold on R, but in reality, the camera wants to work against you. It's always picking odd places to be, and at times, I couldn't see where I needed to platform whenever it wanted me to. There were too many leap of faith moments where there shouldn't have been. In a platform game like this, you can't have a bad camera. You just can't. And the game tried to be inventive with its camera, and it always tried to have it ever changing with the scene. There's auto camera, action camera, and battle camera. I could hardly tell the difference between action and battle camera. Action camera, battle camera. Action camera, battle camera. Action camera, battle camera. Action camera, battle camera. action camera. As for level design, it is not the best. It's definitely not bad, but it isn't very exciting, and that's its major flaw. The design in itself is okay, but it's not all too intriguing, and at times the game would get boring. This mainly goes for the beginning of the game up until about the point of the tower segments. You start off on a boat, do the simple tutorial, then sink the boat, okay? You fight the first boss, okay? Then you run around, push some switches, and run around some more for about an hour. Occasionally, you fight enemies in between pushing switches, but enemies are so sparse. And this is something that I can't stress enough. Where are the enemies? The game is so anti-combat when it tries to throw in a fight, it falls flat on its face. For example, that was easy. Why would you make something start off so dramatically and then only last about 5 seconds? What is this? With FreeXax? The maze area where you have to help escort Henry is interesting at the start and was pretty fun to get through. I mean, I don't think that anything has ever floored me as fast in a video game than skeletons riding motorcycles shooting machine guns. But after a while, this level got boring. Figuring out what to do and running around the maze aimlessly with nothing to fight was not an exciting experience. After a while, you get to Art Tower, and this is when things got honestly challenging and at the very least interesting. The design was centered around what time of day you try to do things in, and I've always liked this kind of design. It is a lot more interesting than finding a switch to open up a door. The doors will have a moon or a sun on them, and you can only go into them when the time allows. If you need to get into a moon door, you can use a moon card, and that will make it nighttime. Same goes for sun doors and sun cards. The enemies that you defeat here also drop these cards like candy, so there's never really a shortage. Like I said, I like this kind of design because it's different, but I do have an issue with it. Whenever you use the sun or moon card, you have to wait for the time to speed up and pass rather than it just do it instantly. And this would take only about 10 seconds, but that was enough time wasted for me to get annoyed with it after a few times. The rest of Cornell's story was pretty much the tower levels. Each of them had their own gimmicks and challenges. The challenge also seemed to be on an incline and things got incredibly difficult towards the end. The Tower of Execution and Clock Tower were by far the hardest. The whole entire not having control over your jumps thing really came into play in both of these, and seeing how small slip-ups within these two levels will kill you, that's not fun. But at least these are interesting, unlike this horrible beginning. And the reason why I say that this beginning is so awful is because it doesn't really make good use of 3D design. Yeah, you're doing things on 3 different axes, but that doesn't make it 3D design. This, you could do in a 2D game. And in parts like the Tower of Sorcery, jumping from platform when holding onto the ledge does not make for exciting gameplay. You should not define your 3D game by having to grab a hold of ledges. Maybe I'm just being too hard on the game. I mean, 3D design wasn't exactly easy to do, but if you're gonna make your 3D, the very least you can do is make it not boring. The only part about the beginning that I found even remotely intriguing was the boss fights, and that's not saying much because this first boss fight is the least amount of fun I've had playing a game in a long time, and it was just a bad way to start off the game. The second boss, totally not a giant stall child, was kind of fun because you had to fight it twice, and he seemed to actually have attack patterns that needed to be read. There are smaller boss fights like this werewolf and Tony the Tiger, but these are so easy, and it almost hurts to count them as boss fights. These bone pillar guys were kind of cool, but once again it shows that the targeting system in this game doesn't understand what it wants to do. You want to focus on one enemy, but the game wants you to focus on the other. The Harpy was absolutely not a challenge, and it really tried to force use lock-on technique on you. But you have no option. Stop it, game. I know. I get it. The deformed werewolf wasn't hard, and the power core wasn't hard. Are you starting to see a theme here? Ortega is challenging in comparison to the others because he takes a long time to kill, and then this happened. I'm riding that goat boy. But once again, he's not really that hard. The last boss is, of course, Dracula, and I gotta say this boss fight is better than a lot of the other ones. I felt compelled to use my werewolf form, and rather than just throwing attacks at him, you gotta strategize. But even with this little bit of extra thought, he's easy. Once defeated, he takes the form of Dracula Ultimate. He looks cool, but this really takes me back to the first boss fight. You have hardly any move to move around to avoid attacks. Attacks that he does shoot at you are impossible to dodge. Aiming for his weak spot is a challenge, and it feels really anticlimactic once you beat him because once again, even though he's probably the most difficult boss, that doesn't make him actually difficult. I took him down in less than 3 minutes. So you beat the game with Cornell and then you unlock Henry's story, which is kinda nice. Playing as Henry is practically the same as Cornell with the exception that he uses a gun instead of cool energy, and Henry is on a search and rescue mission for 6 children hidden throughout some of the earlier levels. It's pretty much you just looking around every nook and cranny of the levels to find these kids. I've heard people argue that this only adds to the replay value, but I sort of disagree. it's just not exciting, and I was bored almost instantly when playing as Henry. So, I didn't finish it. Don't judge me. So, once again, I'm faced with a game that is not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. Castlevania Legacy of Darkness pretty much holds true to what I've read. It's not very good, but it's not entirely bad. It has its moments, and while for some people it may not be the greatest Castlevania game, it's definitely stand-outish. To say that this game is awful is a downright lie, but if I'm being honest, it's only okay. And that's okay. I actually really enjoyed playing it, and honestly, if I would have played this as a kid, I probably would be defending the crap out of this game. This has that great N64 feel to it, and that's something that not most N64 games actually can capture. And that's something that, well, is special to me. Thanks for watching.